And there it is. We've hit that magic number. So welcome everybody to our zones 33 and 34 and more all call for November 11th. It's Veterans Day today. So happy Veterans Day to anybody who may have been in the service or is in the service. We appreciate what you've done for our country. Director Peter and I and Trustee Barry are on the call today because we want to share information with you. You know, these all calls actually were started by past International Director David Stovall because he recognized that two things are good about these calls. Number one, I like seeing you, all right? This is really good to see smiling faces. This is wonderful. It's not the same as being at your clubs or being in your district, but I do get to see you. I like that. And the second reason they're really good is because we all get a lot of stuff in our email. The last thing you want is one more newsletter. So from our perspective, it makes a lot more sense to have us all jump on a call where we can see each other and therefore share information. So let me ask Director Peter if he has any welcoming remarks, and then we'll ask our Trustee Barry Rassin for the same. Peter?
Stephanie, thank you. I think you said it all. I also love seeing the faces on the screen. And I think now we're over 100, 105. So thank you all for joining us. And I look forward to sharing some highlights with you. I don't have any other particular words of wisdom. Thanks, Stephanie. Back to you.
And how about you, Barry? Trustee Barry, any welcoming remarks today?
Thank you all for staying engaged in what we do. I think it's so important. As senior leaders in Rotary, it's really up to all of us to make sure that we keep Rotarians engaged in what we do. When we come out of the other side of this, we don't want to see a significant loss of membership. The only way we can keep it is if we all keep everybody else engaged. So thank you for being here. Thank you for what you do.
Thanks, Barry. So, you know, when COVID hit, it changed the way we all did Rotary. And one of the things that happened is that some clubs looked at their legacy model of meeting and changed that. And so they went to fewer meetings, maybe no meetings in person, but they went online, they went virtual, they did hybrid, whatever. The board of directors did the opposite. The board of directors typically had been meeting 4 times a year, but in the age of COVID, it's really easy now to call a meeting. So your board of directors has met a lot since COVID hit. So what Peter and I would like to present to you tonight are some highlights from the September meeting of the board of directors and the October meeting of the board of directors. And then Barry is going to do the same for issues that occurred during trustee meetings as well as decisions. So I'm going to go ahead and start and share with you a couple of the things that happened at our September meeting. So typically the decisions are taken in areas. So one of the areas that we focused on were programs and awards. Now you all know that we are busy elevating Rotaract and getting our Rotaractors engaged in Rotary Club activities. But there's also another youth group that really needs our attention, and those are our Interact students. So at the September meeting, the board did approve creating an Interact Advisory Council. And so that council is going to have current Interactors, recent Interact alumni, and a director liaison. And the purpose is to present a one-year pilot. So they'll be working for 1 year and they'll be advising the board on things that are related to Interact that we should know about. Also at the September meeting, the board encouraged any district, any of your districts that are certified to participate in youth exchange. You know that the short-term youth exchange reopened in October, last October 2020. And the long-term youth exchange is opening in January of 2021. There is available a guide for you to use. It's called Developing a Crisis Management Plan. So we are encouraging districts who are looking at youth exchange to look at that and make sure that you have a crisis management plan. Also, there's another document called Virtual Rotary Youth Exchange Guidelines, and these are all available on the website. So although a virtual exchange is not ideal, it sure beats not having any exchange. So for those of you who participate in youth exchange activities, be aware that those documents do exist, and we would encourage you to take a look at them. Also, at that meeting, the board did accept the proposal from districts in Texas that are going to host the 2022 Rotary International Convention, and that will be held in Houston, Texas, from the 4th to the 8th of June. Peter?
Thanks, Stephanie. So under the heading of administration and finances, there are two items that I want to share with you. The first, and perhaps the most significant, is that the board elected 3 new trustees: Mark Maloney, Larry Lunsford, and Akira Miki. Mark Maloney, of course, is our immediate past president, and it's, I think, traditional that after 1 year out of office, past president joins the Board of Trustees. He will be joined by Larry Lunsford. Many of you will know Larry. He was the aide to President Mark. He is the current chair of the Rotary Peace Centers Committee. Akira Miki was an advisor to the Board of Trustees. He's now a full member. So with Mark and Larry, the US representation on the Board of Trustees remains very strong, as it should be. The second item is really just a formality. I think you know this. The board agreed that in light of the ongoing global COVID-19 pandemic, to qualify as Rotary funded travel for the remainder of the calendar year 2020, the travel must be essential to Rotary's business operations. And as a footnote to that, they also agreed that personal travel will not be allowed in conjunction with any Rotary funded travel through 31 December 2020. So all the plans that I had and Stephanie had to travel around the world on Rotary business between now and the end of the year, sadly have fallen by the wayside. And of course, we're very distressed about that, but we are hopeful that next year the ban on travel will be lifted. So they're just the 2 points that I wanted to raise from the September meeting, and I'll pass back to Stephanie.
Thanks, Peter. So at our October board meeting, there were 3 highlights that we want to share with you. The first one, of course, you already know. Because of the COVID-19 pandemic, the board agreed that the 2021 International Assembly will become a virtual event. And it will be held between the 1st and the 11th of February. And the reason it's longer is to accommodate time zone issues. All right, so it's a longer period than what the in-person would have been. They also agreed that subject to the 2021 Taipei Convention being held as an in-person event, that they would schedule and create a 2-day event at the beginning of the convention so that district governors-elect can experience the magic of the internationality that happens at NIA. I will tell you that at the end of January, beginning of February, the board will be looking at the current conditions and making a decision about Taipei. We are all encouraged by the news that came from Pfizer about a vaccine and other companies that are moving forward. I did hear Dr. Fauci say today that he expects a vaccine to be widely available in April. So those are encouraging comments, and the board will take all of that information into consideration as they look at the Taipei Convention, keeping in mind that the utmost priority is keeping our Rotarians safe. Peter?
Well, thanks, Stephanie. Continuing on the pandemic theme, the board, under the heading of Leadership Development and Training, noted the the effect that the pandemic has had on Rotary's training events and recognizing the corresponding positive shift in the use of Rotary's online resources, the board has recommended that after the pandemic is over, clubs and districts adopt the use of a blended learning approach, i.e. the combination of online and in-person, and has further requested that those conducting any Rotary training encourage their participants to complete relevant online courses on Rotary's Learning Centre. This is an amazing facility. There are over 700 courses available to Rotarians, and I commend the Learning Centre to you. It really is a wonderful resource. And the board also agreed that the key leadership roles of club president, district governor, and district membership chair should complete their relevant training online. That's all from the November meeting. So back to Stephanie for the third item.
I want to make one comment about what Peter was just talking about training and how the board is encouraging our districts and our zones to look at more online training. And I just want to compliment all of you in zone 33 and 34 because we were ahead of the curve. Because when we held our gets and our nats last year, we were already doing online training for the first part, and we used our fantastic summit in Atlanta for people to do the bonding. So we're ahead of the curve. You know, we have proven that we can be innovative and creative. So bravo, zones 33 and 34. So the last item we want to share with you is that, as you know, our president nominee is Jennifer Jones from Canada. And because Jennifer has been elected to serve as president, she has stepped down from her role as a Rotary Foundation trustee. So in our bylaws, we have a provision that when that happens, when there's a vacancy on the trustees, the president will nominate and the board will elect a replacement. So the board has elected past RI Director and Vice President Dean Roars, who is also from Canada, to serve out the remainder of Jennifer's term, and that will go until 2023. So that's the highlights from those two meetings. The information that I'm sharing, it has been available. If you have any questions, you can post them in the chat. The board will meet again next week. So we anticipate that there will be some additional information, and we may, I'm not sure we will, but we may schedule another call in December to keep you up to date, depending on how raucous that board meeting becomes next week. So Barry, I'm going to ask you if you will step in now and share with us information from our Board of Trustees.
Sure, happy to, Director Stephanie and Peter, appreciate it. Like the board, the trustees are meeting every month, and it's amazing how we thought we'd have a weak agenda, but now it's getting jammed right up. So we actually went to 2 days last month, and not sure what'll happen. We also meet next week, and we have a lot of items on the agenda. One big thing we're addressing is the World Fund budget shortfall. You may be aware that we ran short in the World Fund in June and couldn't process any global grants during the month of June. Part of that is because we did so well with COVID-19. It was absolutely incredible that we turned around over $30 million worth of grants just for COVID-19. About $7 million out of the disaster fund and the rest for global grants. And we turned them around really quickly. So it's a good thing, but it put a lot of pressure on the World Fund. And what happened then, July 1st came along, and we had 800 applications for global grants. We're concerned we could run out of the World Fund by January. That being said, we have had a work group working on what changes can we make in order to at least push us a little longer than just January, so we can do some things. So we've amended the minimum budget of a global grant from 15,000 to 30,000, so trying to get them bigger. We also have agreed with the comprehensive recommendations of the work group on looking at the World Fund. We believe we have found a few $1 million that we could either save or add to the revenue, therefore build up our World Fund by that much. Next week, we'll approve the details. We have to make sure that we're not just grabbing pie out of the sky and we're going to lose more as a side effect than we gain. So we've done that, and on Tuesday, we'll finalize what we're going to actually do. But there's probably going to be a cut in staff as a part of this. But that's the kind of thing we're looking at really seriously. You all know about Rotaract and what we're doing with the Rotaract, but the trustees are also making decisions regarding Rotaract, and we're encouraging our RRFCs and our district foundation coordinators to better engage our Rotaractors in training, in fundraising, and support of the Rotary Foundation. Part of my message is that E-Ray is really with 2 R's, every Rotaractor and Rotarian every year. We've got to make sure our Rotaractors understand that. And it doesn't have to be a lot, what they can afford, but they need to be engaged in foundation activities. So we're asking districts and zones and clubs to do that. Also encouraging Rotaract clubs to appoint club leaders, so they have a leader who's going to support the foundation and help to educate Rotaractors who may not be fully aware of what we do. And we're also encouraging Rotary clubs to include Rotaract club leaders in club foundation committee. So if you're a Rotary club, you're working with Rotaractors, put a Rotaractor on your committee, and not just your foundation committee. Spread them onto your committees so they really get involved in what Rotary is doing. They'll get to know us, we get to know them. Much bigger chance they're actually going to join Rotary when they're finished. So we got to keep doing that. We agreed to appoint Rotaract members of the Rotaract Committee of Rotary International to advise the trustees on matters related to Rotaract. We want to make sure we're hearing from Rotaractors at the top level so that we know how they think. We know what they perceive when we want to make changes, and they can give us suggestions for change as well. So they're now going to be able to be at the table. They don't have a vote, but at least we'll be able to hear their opinions. And we have requested the trustee chairs to appoint a trustee liaison to the Rotaract Committee and invite the Rotaract Committee to advise the trustees directly on matters related to the foundation. So now the Rotaract Committee of Rotary International will have a trustee liaison, and that information will also come back to the trustees. So that's really, we made a lot of changes for Rotaract on the books, policies, procedures, since the council made the change. Now the big challenge, and as we all know, more difficult, is to change our culture. Rotary clubs need to think about what their culture is and how they handle Rotaractors, and actually young professionals, not just Rotaractors. So we can really engage and bring them into our organization. And of course, we did approve the 7th area focus for the environment. And next week, we will have presented to us all the details of what that means. As you know, every area focus has a whole set of rules and regulations. So we've done that for the environment. And guess what? We did that with a task force of 4 Rotarians and 4 Rotaractors. And that their recommendation is going to come to the foundation next week so that we can finalize that, get that out to you. And then July 1st of next year, you'll be able to get global grants for the environment. That's if you raise enough money so we have money to give you a global grant with. Okay, that's just an aside. So we keep moving and doing a lot of things. We're going to get a lot of things done next week at the meetings, and I think that's pretty much it. We did approve the goals. President Holger, President-elect Shaker presented their goals for next year, 21-22, and we have approved all of those as well. Some include the foundation, most for Rotary International. One of the big ones for RI is to grow by 1.3 million Rotarian, to 1.3 million. Big challenge, but we could do it if we focus. So thank you. I appreciate your listening.
Thanks, Trustee Barry. We appreciate that. We have past Rotary International Director David Stovall in our back room, and I believe David's going to take a look at the chat window and direct questions to the appropriate person. If I do it, I'm going to start answering all of them. So we don't want that. So David, would you share a question and see who it belongs to?
Thank you, Director. We do have several questions in the background. And first one that I see here is, and these are in random order, not particularly in the thread of the order of the thread. Thanks for the update on the IA. It says February 1st and the 10th, but do you have any idea of how soon they will know the times they should set aside for those meetings?
Well, I can take that one. The answer to that is that the curriculum is being developed by our learning and development staff. So once they have figured out the virtual component and the days and the times and whatnot, you will get that information from learning and development.
Okay, very good. This question says, any guidance on what kinds of protocols to anticipate for quarantine, vaccinations, etc., for the convention in Taipei? Are there any policies we should know before arrival if it does become an actual event in person? And I think I know the answer to that, but I'll let you take that one.
I'm happy to take that. I think it's too soon to answer any of those questions positively until the board makes a decision on Taipei, which, as Stephanie said, will not be until probably February. We can't determine what the protocols will be. It's just premature.
Okay, thank you, Peter. Appreciate that. Thought that was the proper answer. Barry, is there any way that the Disaster Relief Fund plays in all of this?
Oh, absolutely. But we're actually have that on the agenda next week. Right now, the disaster fund is a general fund for any disaster, and you can get a grant of $25,000 for your disaster. What we're discussing next week is to be able to make donations for a specific disaster. And for the COVID-19, because we can turn those around really quickly, the Rotary Foundation put $3 million into the disaster fund, and districts around the world gave us GDF and cash. That's how we were able to do the 7 million within a matter of weeks for COVID-19. So yeah, the disaster fund is very important to what we're doing.
Okay, thank you, Trustee Barry. And also, while we are with you, has the recent changes in the stock market helped any with the shortfall in the World Fund?
Well, our net investment from the foundation side is ahead of budget by $29.5 million. So yes, we've, on the books, we're much better off than we were. But you know, you got to watch the market and go up and down with it. But right now, we're doing well.
And I'll just interject, as a former finance committee member, that's great news for me too. Can you tell us how Rotaractors can go about making online contributions to the Rotary Foundation? Can they just go to rotary.org/give like anyone else?
They should be able to. Problem is, some of them aren't on my Rotary or don't have an account. So that would be a challenge. They need to get their president to put their Rotaract Club in with their addresses, then they're able to do it.
Wonderful. So this comes back to our directors, to Stephanie and Peter. Have the North American directors come together to develop a regional plan to grow membership in North America?
Well, let me comment, and then I know Peter will jump in. The North American directors have come together to create innovative club advocates, with the idea being that when we create new clubs, we have a better chance of membership growth, because it's very hard sometimes to get an existing legacy club to change its culture, to change its tradition. And why should they? I mean, that's what brought them to the table. So it's easier for a group of people with a cause or people who have common interest to get together and create their own culture around the idea of service. So we do have innovative club advocates in every zone in North America, and those people get together as well as the directors. Peter, since you are leading that for our two zones, would you like to add what's been happening there?
Sure. Well, as Stephanie mentioned, we have quite a robust, innovative club advocate structure in place to develop new clubs. We appointed 2 advocates in each of the 2 zones, and all those advocates from the 10 zones in America came together earlier this year in Evanston, along with the North American directors. We had a 1 day of fairly robust training. And since then, we have set up an infrastructure, which I think is really quite amazing. In each of the 2 zones, the 2 innovative club advocates. In zone 33, it's Chris Jones and Patrick Eakes. In zone 34, it's Drew Monahan and Mike Darragh. And they are assisted in zone 34 by George Robertson Burnett. They've been meeting on a regular basis with district innovative club advocates, and we're beginning to see quite a lot of progress. Last night, Stephanie participated in the chartering of a new club in Guyana, which is one of the 3 countries in South America. I participated in the chartering of a club in northeastern Florida. And there are quite a number of new clubs in the pipeline, but we definitely need a lot more new clubs. So please, this is a priority. We are way down in terms of membership numbers in the US, although that's being compensated to some extent by massive increases in numbers in India and parts of South Asia. But certainly in North America, there is a very concerted effort to increase membership. And I hope that we can meet Sheikh Ahmed's goal next year of increasing from 1.2 to 1.3 million. But we do need a lot of help from everybody on this call. Thanks, Stephanie. Thanks, David.
Thank you, Stephanie and Peter. Next comment question concerns the survey from Secretary Hugo. Noted that it didn't have questions and comments about areas related to the environment. Barry, is that because we're just so early into the developmental stage of that?
Yes, you'll see more about the environment after we approve the details of the area of focus and have all that detail, because we're kind of going back and forth on wording and what you can do a grant for and those kind of things. So when that's finished, we'll certainly come out to Rotary World with more detail.
And Barry, I believe that you mentioned that the grant amounts going from 15 to 30,000 and minimum, and can you tell us the effective date on that?
I believe we did that as of July. We did that right away. I think that started July 1st this year.
July 1st of this year. Okay, thank you. And there's a question that got answered there, but we'd like to clarify for everyone in case you didn't see it in the chat. Trustee Barry mentioned and Peter mentioned as well, the goal to grow from 1.2 to 1.3 million members next year. That does not include interactors. That's exclusive of Rotary, excuse me, does not include Rotaractors.
No.
Directors Stephanie and Peter, any plans that you're aware of to make Early Act an official group of Rotary International?
None that I'm aware of.
Well, just to supplement that, there is a resolution that is being discussed by the Council on Resolutions at this moment. Whether it will pass or not, I don't know. The voting at the COR closes on November the 15th, and we may well see the adoption of a resolution proposing Early Act or variations of Early Act. So that's something to look forward to. And as soon as we hear a little more, we'll share that information with you.
Thank you, Peter and Stephanie. Barry, could you share with us again the annual giving fundraising goal for the Rotary Foundation, what it is for the current year, and if you know how we're doing against the goal up to now?
My memory isn't that good. I know we're doing well. We're meeting our obligations so far this year. We actually exceeded our goal June 30th last year, which we didn't expect. So that's fantastic. And we're keeping in pace with what we budgeted this year. So we're doing well. I believe the comprehensive goal was 305 million, but that might have been last year's goal. I hesitate, I'm not 100% sure of that, but I think that's what it was.
Okay, thank you very much. Stephanie and Peter, has the board discussed the funding provided to governors for the 21-22 year yet?
It has not been a discussion item yet, but given what we know about our budgets and where we're saving money and where we're spending money, we're saving a lot more money because of travel. As Peter mentioned, none of us are traveling. All of the staff are working from home. There's just a lot of cost savings that are going on. So I am sure we'll be looking at that. But on the flip side, we're a dues-driven organization. So if our membership continues to go downward, then it becomes an issue, where are we going to get the funding to support the programs that we have? Peter?
No, nothing more to say. I see where that question came from, and I'd like to make a comment, but in the interest of civility, I won't make any comment on that matter.
Okay, so just a couple of more questions here. Is it correct to understand, and a correct interpretations, that DGs are not to travel during 2021? This person says, I'm doing most all visits virtually, but there are a few clubs that I must travel to for award presentations, such as a 100th anniversary. Stephanie and Peter, would one of you address that?
The information that the board has taken decisions on is through the end of the calendar year. So we will revisit information about travel and recommendations for Rotary leaders at the district and zone level at our upcoming meetings. But right now, what's in place talks about recommended travel and trying to do things virtually through the end of December.
Just an add-on to that, the prohibition is on Rotary funded travel. I don't think that extends to a governor's allocation. Governors are free to travel to club and district meetings and claim expenses under their allocation. But if there's a Rotary funded travel and air travel to some other part of the world, that's what is prohibited until the end of this calendar year.
Thank you, Peter and Stephanie. And you all know I like to have a good time, and I like to be happy. And I do this at the expense of embarrassing myself. And Trustee Barry, I only do this because 6 people have texted me the goal for the year privately, and they all say it's 410 million. So I'm going to go with 410 million because they say so.
That's fine.
And for everyone else, you have no idea how much fun I'm having giving these guys questions off the cuff from you all. One comment for all 3 of you, and I'm just going to read it. The Rotary website claims 16 million hours of service. Who ever dreamed up that number? I have done a statistical analysis and have just about that much per month. Can this not be reviewed for accuracy? And with that, that's all of our questions, directors and trustee. And thank you all for sharing all that information today with it. I think it's great that we're doing this.
Well, the answer to that question, David, is I have no idea who dreamed up that number. Peter, do you?
I do.
Barry does, okay.
I like the number.
We hired an outside consultant who did a review of clubs and districts around the world, got as much information as they could, and estimated at the end of the day, but based on very reliable information, that 16 million hours worth $850 million is what Rotary clubs do. So it wasn't just out of the air. It was well researched.
That, Stephanie and Peter, back to you.
All right, we want to thank everybody for being part of the all call today. We hope you got some interesting information and some backstory about how some of these decisions come into being. And we hope that you'll join us again when we have another all call and share information from our trustees and our RI board. Peter, over to you.
Just, I echo Stephanie's thanks. This is great. 139 people on the call. It's just fantastic. The commitment and the dedication that you are showing is just, it makes our job so much more worthwhile. So thank you all, and keep up the good work.
And Barry, a final word from you.
Well, thank you all for being here. I agree totally with what Peter and Stephanie has said. It's gratifying to know that you stay involved and you want to help our clubs and districts do even more. Thank you.
And a special thank you to past Rotary International Director David Stovall for setting up our call and being our backroom person today. Everybody have a good rest of the day, and we'll see you again. That's all, folks.